So we've got Sarah Sherman, who was chairing our session earlier on. We've also got Nicola Yeeles, who works for, now I'm always going to say you work for JISC and you don't, do it. It's Education
Technology magazine, that's right, yeah.
Fantastic. And Nicola is going to be one of our dragons later on for our pitch
Nice
fest.
dragon,
I'm sure we need mask and things like that to go on. Yes, yeah, that was being practiced over dinner last night as well. So we might chat a little bit about what you're hoping to see out of that a bit later on as well. But just to start with, either of you both, what was the main issue that you think came out of that debate? What was the thing that struck you most?
I was really interested with Lindsay and Bryony's point about actually, is this an issue? We know there's a gap, okay. And it's something that, I mean, to be honest, apart from the fact that I'm a woman and I work in technology, it's not an area that I've been too bothered by, but I haven't done any research on it until today for today's session. But I thought about it, what they've been saying, and maybe there is a problem. Maybe it's just an awareness profile thing of the tech jobs that it's for those with the masculine traits, usually men, and so girls are just thinking they rule them out. Yeah. So maybe we need to explore more about, it's twofold. It's right at the top of the institution, enabling women to go for leadership roles and the flexibility, and actually the flexibility regardless of gender, but also the other end of the spectrum and working with children and adolescents who are thinking about applying for university and all the careers advice. Yes. That's my take on it.
Yeah, no, we were talking with Mandy and with Heidi and Samantha about careers advice and careers being perhaps the place that it sounded like more needs to be done than actually getting the girls to do the tech A-levels in the first place.
And I think really good links with industry and schools and universities and schools and industry and university as well. We can all be, the different sectors be talking to each other more. And it's about role models, and hopefully in 20 years' time we won't be having these debates anymore. Yes. Because the role models will be the role models regardless of gender. Yeah. I don't know. What's your take?
Ideal world.
Yeah, for me there was a really interesting discussion about whether to positively discriminate among candidates or not. And there was an interesting suggestion that perhaps at the shortlisting stage people could shortlist 50% women and 50% men, interview those candidates, and then of course only pick the best candidate for the role.
Provided enough women are applying for roles, but in our experience they're not necessarily even going. But I think it's a really interesting suggestion.
Yeah, there's a real issue there. There was also quite a lot of talk about feminine and masculine traits, not positive and negative traits, as I nearly said.
Yes.
But also, I think behind all that is, what about the atypical candidates that we get for roles? What about people from a non-white British background? What about people who have kind of disabilities at work, or people who come from backgrounds that perhaps not traditionally IT focused, or they don't have the technical skills? I think lurking in the background of that debate was, what happens if, and how we can support kind of a diverse range of candidates to go for roles.
The other thing I was thinking about recruitment, and I didn't say it earlier, but as a chair you've got to kind of not too much talking, really. But in terms of, it's good, I can say everything I want to hear. But in terms of recruitment, a friend of mine who is very aware, she's an active feminist, she's a moderator of various different groups, and she was aware of the people that she was recruiting into roles that she was advertising happened to be white female, and that kind of alarmed her a bit. So she's got enough sort of insight into herself, self-awareness, to make her go back and check. And she checked herself and she looked back through and she talked to colleagues and said, was I unconsciously discriminating, only putting these women into posts? And she wasn't, and she was assured by her colleagues that no, we chose the best person fit for the job. But the fact that she had that self-awareness and made her go back, maybe we can all be a bit more like that. So
yeah, there's a well-known kind of psychological bias towards recruiting people in your own likeness, isn't there, which is quite dangerous.
Yeah.
Or the image that you expect the person doing that job to have. Yeah, I mean, I've certainly interviewed black actors who come across the same issue, where a casting director assumes, unless it says otherwise, that a male role is automatically going to be a white actor, and actually they're having the same issues in breaking down those barriers and thinking, well, does it have to be? Who are you picturing when you're thinking about who to hire, and can that be different? Does it have to be the way you imagine it?
We need to see more of that, so it changes is society's perception, because that's where we all come from. So I've got a colleague here who's an IT director. She has a son and a daughter, and she's an IT director. She's certainly not going to discourage her daughter from being keen in tech, but actually her son plays the video games, her daughter does like the girly reading books. And it's nothing at home, it's actually the influence of school and friends, and it's a huge thing, a huge issue that we've got to tackle somehow.
Yes, yeah, I was mentioning earlier, I don't know whether you saw the Horizon programme that the BBC did, and that I was
on iPlayer. I've got to watch it.
I was expecting that reference to come up during that debate, actually.
Time to watch it, otherwise I would have done.
You'll enjoy, but that was looking at the different, whether it is innate or whether it is a nurture thing, and what the difference.
You're not going to tell me what they found because I've got to watch it myself.
Typically they didn't come to a conclusion. Actually, there's a spoiler.
I did a psychology degree a very long time ago, and it's nature versus nurture. It's a bit of both.
Yes, yeah, and that was very much. They had a group of kids sitting around, and it was the girls all saw themselves as very creative, and the lads all had very distinct jobs that they wanted to do that were quite technical. I mean, their focus was science rather than tech, but they were raising the issue of the self-fulfilling prophecy, with girls thinking, "I'm not good at doing this." So that'll be cue for you to go and watch that later.
Yeah. There's a great thing online at the moment where they're encouraging, I think it's Google are encouraging girls to learn to code by creating little funky bracelets which they can then print out on 3D printers. And all you have to do is create a box of code which they guide you through, and then you get these lovely little pink and purple bracelets. If I was a teenager, I would have done it.
That whole loom band thing has been really interesting, because I've got friends who've got sons, and all of them have been, it doesn't seem to be a gender thing, the loom bracelet thing. Yeah. Boys, girls alike. So maybe we're starting to see something changing.
Yeah, there was that blur between women getting more masculine and men getting more feminine. So what were the things that you didn't hear in that debate that you maybe expected to hear?
I think I was expecting there to be more about sort of families and childcare and issues, because actually all three of the panellists, not myself, I don't have children, but they all have children. And in fact, before the session, and I spoke to them all to sort of prep and see what they were comfortable talking about, and they were all very happy to talk about their personal family lives, and actually it didn't really come up, so that was interesting.
Yeah, for me that was the real elephant in the room. I was expecting someone to say childcare very early on. I think I was slightly concerned at one point. We heard from a lot of women in the audience, and I actually wanted to give the men a prod and say, what do you think?
Because 70% of the audience,
Absolutely, because if women are talking about this, then actually there's an issue there. If men aren't involved, that's one of the issues, isn't it? So I'd be really interested to hear a few more opinions from them.
And the other thing that came out of that was the idea that maybe we should step away from the women in tech and just talk about the tech. Did either of you have any sort of thoughts about what else we should be talking about?
I thought we would talk a bit more about the different types of tech roles there are. So as I said earlier, I come from an e-learning background, and my immediate cohort of colleagues within London is a really good, pretty much 50-50 split of those that work in learning technology, educational developers. And in IT, there's much more disparity. So I know one of the institutions I work for has got a really big IT department, and I kind of counted up the names, and it's like maybe it's about 11-12% of women. So there's a difference between EdTech and IT, and I thought we might have talked about that more in that scenario. Maybe we could.
Yeah, I think Amber touched on that very briefly, didn't she? So yes, maybe she's got some more views. We might try and grab her a bit later on. I warn her. So maybe moving on, thinking about the pitch fest later on. So I know you've spent some time looking at what we're going to see a bit later, and I'm hoping that some of those people who are going to be pitching later on in the programme are going to come and have a chat with us. Sorry, my 5-minute warning there, so we've got 5 minutes to talk about Pitch Fest entrance. What are you excited about in terms of what we're going to see later on today?
Well, I think one of the great things about it is that there was no brief. It was kind of good ideas for technology and education, and I've seen a lot of competitions where they're looking at a particular solution or looking at a particular problem, and I think when you're really open, that's when you get the really innovative ideas. One thing that's been interesting is that these aren't actually at the ideas stage. A lot of them are quite developed startups already, so I think we're going to see some very well thought through presentations. A lot of people have already been in talks with people like Channel 4 or the BBC or individual universities, so I think what I'm really looking forward to hearing is what their priorities are for education, because I think there are some solutions from outside education that might be interesting when applied in kind of to students. and secondly, what their vision is for the future. I'm probably 10 years older than some of them, so it'll be really interesting to hear what they've got to say.
Yeah, I had a very quick flick through some of them, and I think there were some where they were going to be very clear pitches, I think, and then some where I struggled to find what it was they were actually doing. So it's going to be interesting hearing them pitch, isn't it? So explain. I don't know if Frank's briefed you a little bit about how that pitch fest is going to work. I know that the audience are going to be asked to vote. Do you get criteria? Are you marking people?
I'm not sure of the judging criteria at the moment. I think it's going to be on the audience, as I understand it. The guys are going to give the different projects are going to give their 3-minute pitches. As the judges, we're going to grill them as hard as we like for 3 minutes, and then the audience will have a chance to vote. So, yeah.
Fantastic. So that'd be great. I'll just check very quickly, because I promised I would keep an eye on Twitter to see. No, that's not a reference to us, so that's okay. Because we're trying to encourage people to ask us questions, but we are going to go back into the next session, which is the future gazing session. So hopefully that'll be.
Glad the specs ready to go for the.
I saw some people wearing them in the audience. Yeah, I really want to have a go.
Fantastic. So it'll be something to watch out for. So thank you very much, both of you, for joining us, and we'll catch up with you again later in the event. Thank you.